Jack with Staccato Blue Team. Thank you for joining me for another video. Tonight, you may notice that I'm in uniform. I just got home from working an extra duty detail, and I was having a conversation with one of my buddies that I was out there with working it. And you get a lot of time, we're out in front of a club, and usually, you got time, you're talking, and conversation comes around to what's up that space gun that you're rocking, referring to my Staccato. And I'm more than willing to have the conversation. And, it usually always comes around to the price. And why would I spend the money on something like that? So that's what I wanted to get into. Now, let's be honest. Any of the several other modern service pistols that are polymer frame, striker fired, through whatever their Mill Leo programs, Blue Label program, you can get between $400 to $600. So for, let's just say Glock, for example, you can buy 3 Glocks for the price of a Staccato. Sometimes, particularly, to which model of Staccato that you get, you might be able to buy 4 Glocks for that Staccato. So it's not lost on me, it's not lost on Staccato, that there is a price difference there, and that gives some folks pause. So I just wanted to get a little bit into it as far as even my own personal motivations. So I, however long ago, traffic stop, pull over some guy in a sports car, and it's an exotic sports car, and it was capable of driving over 200 miles an hour. I think it could drive 220 miles an hour, clocked them at about 100, right? And come back, and I'm just turning in all my paperwork, and I remember making a comment to somebody about, hey man, you're not a race car driver, we're not on a racetrack, this isn't a race car, like what are you doing with a 200 mile an hour car other than just because you can do what you want if you can afford it? And buddy said something to me, he said, you don't buy a 200 mile an hour car to drive 200 mile an hour. You buy a 200 mile an hour car because when you're driving 100 miles an hour, the car is only working half as hard. And it made sense to me. And that's exactly how I equate the Staccato. Like, the Staccato is a 200 mile an hour car. So when we're in these 100 mile an hour situations, the gun's only working half as hard, and then you consequently are only working half as hard, especially in these critical, high-stress situations where, because of the inherent mechanical advantage, and what I refer to as the unfair advantage of the Staccato P, especially a Staccato P DPO, where I have a red dot equipped and I have a greater field of view. It requires for me to operate, a Staccato, to shoot a Staccato well, right? Especially if I now need to make a critical shot, it requires far less conscious competency. So I can rely on my unconscious competency, and I can now use that processing speed, that power, and focus that energy on the actual situation instead of having to suck out of the situation and bring more conscious competency in so I can make this critical shot, if that makes sense. Most of my adult life, I have been shooting all the popular modern service pistols, polymer frame, striker fire, and I can shoot them well. But still to this very day, it requires far more conscious competency for me to maintain a level of excellence that is required during high risk, high threat high stress situations to make critical shots, if that makes sense. So, especially now in this climate, in this era, me spending the money as far as legitimately buying performance. You can buy performance. You cannot buy skill, but you can buy performance. I just kind of look at it as on the front end, making a minimal investment as far as buying performance and investing in myself as far as owning a Staccato. If, God forbid, there was a critical incident where I now have to be involved in an officer-involved shooting and I have to do what I need to do, the likelihood of my success is increased. And then I'm also hopefully decreasing my margin of error, if that makes sense. Like if I have a good and proper, valid and legal reason to make a shot, but because for me, the shot goes wrong and I hit someone else that does not need to be shot, the lawyer fees, court costs, possible imprisonment are going to be so much more expensive for me to go through than the original initial cost of a Staccato, if that makes sense. I know that's very dramatic, but I think at some point we cannot not think of things in those terms, especially as an armed professional, as a law enforcement officer in this day and age. Let's just be honest. When we try to avoid situations that we can, but sometimes the situation finds you. Like, we don't deal the play. Y'all know that. So when we find ourselves in this situation, I want the absolute best tool that will enable me to overcome and succeed in that situation, that will also allow me to have, again, like I just said, the least margin of error or deviation. So I can come into the situation with as much excellence as I possibly can to get that positive outcome. That's just my thoughts on it. Thank you very much. You guys have a great weekend. Be safe. If you have any more questions, please contact me or contact us at Staccato. If you would like an 8-hour block of instruction or a demonstration day at your agency, please contact me or contact Matt Little at Staccato. Thank you very much.